Welcome everybody joining us tonight for this special Shabbat on on Zoom if you're here tonight, or Facebook, or our YouTube channel. We are everywhere. We're gonna wait another minute. There are a few more people who are joining us on the Zoom call, and then in 1 minute I'll wave to Jal for him to start. In the meantime, set yourself up for this night. Let go of the day that was. Take a few deep breaths. We're here to celebrate together. We are here to also enter into Shabbat together. So it's all those energies. I got my Shabbat candles here, my Hanukkah candles here. We're all ready to go. Here you go, Jal. Take it away. Wow. Thank you, Jal. That was amazing. I was looking for where you were reading the music, but there was nowhere you were doing that. So
No music.
really amazing. You've been doing this once or twice before, I understand. Welcome, everybody. We say Shabbat Shalom. We say Chag Sameach. Chag Chanukah Sameach. That's a lot of ch, but that's what we say. Chag Chanukah Sameach. Happy Chanukah to all of you. It's a very special and unique Shabbat that we get to do once a year and invite all the community joining us as we are going to light our candles tonight together, but separate. But with this sense of community coming together, we have incredible pieces of music that have come together. Our musicians have been incredibly hard at work and have just produced gems for us, and you're gonna love it. We're gonna hear music and songs in Ladino. We're gonna hear also Yiddish, and we might hear some Hebrew and English in the mix of that. So a feast of music and singing and rejoicing. So if you haven't already, like I have, you have just a moment now to begin setting up your Chanukiah, your Chanukah menorah. We are lighting on the second night of Chanukah, so you need to have two candles for the night and the shemesh, the candle helper lighter to light those candles. So if you take a moment to do that, in the meantime, we are going to be ready to sing our first song for tonight. It's called Light One Candles. I hope you have your little handout that was in the email, and the song is Light One Candle at the bottom of the page. It's the famous song by Peter Yarrow, and it's always one that I love to enter into the holy day of Hanukkah with, because the song itself sets an intention. I mean, if you look at the words, you see that there are four lines, and then the refrain that comes, and then four more, and it's matching all of the eight candles. And it's like the song itself invites us to set an intention, a kavanah, for each of the nights. And the first night, it's about gratitude. If you look at the song, the first night is as we should always start any holiday and any gathering together, is a moment of gratitude, just to open our hearts to what it is we are grateful for. I know it's hard those days. There's so much darkness, but that's why we are bringing light to the darkness, and that's why we are starting to, have the spiritual practice to look at what are we grateful for right now. The second candle is the candle for tonight, the candle that invites us to find the courage to fight for our right to be, our right to exist exactly as we are, embodying the divine in a very way we are uniquely embodying the divine, and our right to live as a Jewish people also as well. So tonight we're, the first and the second candles. The first candle is the energies are brought 8 times, right? So we start every night with gratitude, and then we add. And then the third candle that we'll lit tomorrow is about justice and freedom, and how can we act in our world to promote justice and freedom. The fourth is about wisdom, and the wisdom that leads us to seek and and promote peace in the world and in our life as well. The fifth one is the strength needed for self-care, right? We need to be mindful of ourselves in order to be a light to others. If our light is dim, then we cannot bring brightness to others. So self-care. The sixth one is the compassion for those who are suffering. And I'm not making it up. It's really what's in the song. And I love to connect with that. The seventh for me is the words talk of unity and oneness. And the eighth night, the one candle we only do once, is about remembering our interbeingness, that we are all here as one, that the illusion of separation is just that, it's an illusion. And what we do here impacts what happens out there. So I hope that gave you the time to set up your candles, so that we can now step into the song. Again, it's on page 1 in your prayer book.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. Light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our hopes and our fears. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out.
Wow. Oh, that was so lovely. It's just such a great opportunity to feel ourselves back in our space and to see all of your faces and all of your Chanukiot. So it's called a Chanukah menorah, but the real term is Chanukiah. It's different from a Chanukah, from a regular menorah, because it has 9 branches. The regular menorah only has 7. And it was so lovely to see different holidays. Some had 4 candles, some had 7 candles. It's just a blessing to be back for just a little bit of time in this space. So this is the time where we are going to light, now that we have set up our Chanukiot, that we're going to light them, and at the same time we're going to say the blessings, and those are on page 4 on the back of your handout. You can find them there. We're going to kindle our shamas, our shamash. In Hebrew, it's like shemesh, meaning the sun. The sun is the word shemesh in Hebrew. So the shamash is like the sun candle, if you like. And then we're going to light the candles from right to left. We always light the candle, the newest candle first, the new energies first. So go ahead, do that. I'm going to do it myself, or not, trying with a different match. Then go ahead and light your Chanukiah. Hopefully this time we won't set up the fire alarm. And join me for the blessing. Maybe we can unmute everybody. Everybody unmute. We're going to say the blessings together. There you go.
Blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav letzivanu lehadir el Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher avotenu hayamim hahem b'azman And we continue with Ma'oz Tzur, that is on page 2 in your little handout.
Ma'ozu Yeshuati L'chana L'shabeach Tikon Beit Tefilati V'sham Todan L'zabeach Neit Tachin Matbayach Mitzar Hamnabeach Azegmor V'shir Mizmor Chanukah HaMizbeach Azegmor V'shir Mizmor Chanukah HaMizbeach Rock of Ages, let our song praise your saving power. You amid the raging foes were our sheltering tower. Pure is they assailed us, but your arm availed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. Kindling you the holy lamps, grace approved in suffering, purified the nation's shrines, brought to God their offering, and his courts surrounding, here in joy abounding, happy throngs singing songs with a mighty sounding, happy throngs singing songs with a mighty sounding, children of the Maccabees, whether free or fettered, wake the echoes of the songs where you may be scattered. Yours the message cheering that the time is nearing, which will see calm and free tyrants disappearing.
So let me tell you a little bit about Hanukkah. The history of Hanukkah goes all the way back to around 329, give or take a day or two. 329 BCE, and that's the time of the conquest of Alexander the Great and all the Greek armies invading area after area and conquering the northern Israel and then Israel and going even all the way to Egypt and settling there as well. The Greek Empire coming into its fullness, going actually very far east into the east of the Middle East. And one of the great strength of the Greek Empire and the way they ruled their world was actually not so much by the sword and not so much by fear, but in fact by bringing to all the provinces and areas they conquered the best of who they were. And that was called Hellenism. And Hellenism came to the land of Judah at the time and awed the Jewish people that lived there. They brought with them great philosophers. They brought with them sports, something that was unknown until then. They brought with them a different political system, a different view of how to organize society, and they really were received by the Jewish people in a lot of ways with great awe and great wonder. And very quickly, though there were some pockets of resistance, obviously, we kind of enjoyed what we saw. It was a time of expanding consciousness and a time of new discoveries, and we see very quickly that the Jews adapt to their conqueror. The Greek Empire is going to stay around for about 160 years and rule over the Jewish people at least for that long. And we see very quickly that Jews, especially Jews that are now moving outside of Israel, a lot of Jews are moving to Egypt and settling in Cairo, Alexandria at the time, right? And they begin to really assimilate in the culture around them. They start to even lose Hebrew as a spoken language, Aramaic also as a spoken language. They begin to name their children Alexander, for example, which is very interesting to see that Jewish kids are starting to be named after their conqueror, right? And we have, it's the time where we even have the first attempt at a translation of the Torah into Greek. And it's called the Septuagint. And the story goes that in Alexandria, 70 sages of the Jewish tradition were convened together by the rulers of the time and asked to translate the Torah word for word in Greek. Just to say that there was a lot of knowledge of Greek in the Jewish community. And all of those 70 sages translated the Torah from Hebrew to Greek exactly, word for word, identically. And so that was the miracle of the Septuagint that was then adopted, as we know, beyond Judaism. So you can see in all of those stories how much there was a merging of the Jewish people with the forces of the Greek Empire. But I said at the beginning that there always was some who resisted, this assimilation, if you'd like. And though they were kind of aside, things shifted when the local ruler, the ruler of the region of the Greek Empire, changed, and a ruler named Antiochus came into power over the area where the Jews lived, where the Israel, where the Judean lived. They used to go back and forth, and there was a southern area and a northern area. They fought their own battles, and eventually we came under the rule of Antiochus. And Antiochus is going to be very different than its predecessors in the sense that he's going to want the assimilation of the Jewish people to go a little faster than what he's seeing. I mean, he's seeing that the Jews are adopting this and adopting that, but they're not really after so many years, after so much time, they're not really there yet. And so he's going to begin a process of coercing us into becoming more like them, like him, more Greek, if you want. And he's going to start to rule that, for example, it is forbidden for the Jews to learn from the Torah. It's the first time that this happens, and as a mode of repression, as a modality to really divert the Jews from their Jewish practices, he forbade the study and the reading of the Torah, the weekly reading of the Torah, which is where come the Haftorah, because Jews and rabbis of the time found a way around the law and said, okay, if we can't study the books of the Torah, we're going to take the ruling to, literally, maybe we can study the other books. And we're going to pick some portions from the other books, the book of Kings, the book of Prophets, that are going to remind us of the weekly Torah portion, but we're not going to study the weekly Torah portion. That's illegal under penalty of death. And so they create a kind of a parallel study process and study program called, that we know today as Haftorah. And you would think that after the Greek Empire was dissolved, we would have stopped doing that. But no, until today, we add to the weekly Torah portion the weekly Haftorah section connected to the Torah portion. We never give up on anything. Once we start a tradition, we keep it forever. They also told us that it was forbidden to circumcise our children, our boys, and on and on it went. They took over the temple of Jerusalem and made it into a temple dedicated to the worship of Zeus. And the altar of sacrifices that the priest used for Jewish worship was turned into pagan worship, and pigs actually were sacrificed there. And that didn't sit well with the Jews, and that didn't sit well, especially with those who, from the beginning, had resisted assimilation. And a group of rebels, if you like. I always think a little bit of it as a version of Star Wars. You have the evil empire who is trying to put everybody under their thumb, and then you have the rebellion, right? And the forces of the rebellion are called the Maccabees, and they're called the Maccabees because that's the battle, their battle style, if you want. They are creating ambush for the soldiers of the Greek army, and they are hitting them, and they're disappearing into the terrain they only know. So it's a kind of guerrilla warfare that they create to defeat the armies of the Greek Empire. And this hitting a blow and then disappearing, hitting another blow and disappearing, and hitting another blow and disappearing, feels and looks like hammering the troops of the Greek Empire. And Maccabees actually is the word that means hammer. So they are the hammerers who are hitting the enemy. And because they know the terrain of the land, they can never be found. And ultimately, the war against the Greek Empire starts in the year 169 BCE, and it's going to last 3 years until the year 166, when finally victory happens for the Maccabees. They take back Jerusalem after 3 years. They rededicate the temple to Jewish worship and have a great, wonderful party. They were religious. They were a religious faction. And the holiday that was just missed was the holiday of Sukkot, which lasts 8 days, and they decided to do Sukkot not in the fall, but now we are in December. We are in the middle of the winter, and to do Sukkot as the temple is rededicated as the holiday that is going to be called Chanukah, because the word Chanukah means dedication or rededication. And so they model the 8th day of celebration on the 8 days of Sukkot, which is why Chanukah to this day lasts 8 days. And so we light each of these days one candle. There are 8 candles total to celebrate the 8 days, or commemorate really the 8 days of the rededication party, if you want, that took place 166 BCE on the 25th of the month of Kislev. And there are many songs around the 8 lights of Hanukkah. My favorite is the one we sing in Ladino, Ocho Candelicas. It is on page 3 in the little handout that hopefully you have printed. Now that's not it. Wrong one. So give me a second. I have to load up the right one. Always a little tricky. All right, here we go.
Hanukkah linda está aquí. Ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah linda está aquí. Ocho candelas para mí.
Una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí. Muchas fiestas voy a pasar con alegrías y placer. Muchas fiestas voy a pasar con alegrías y placer. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
Los pastelicos comer con almendrigas y la miel. Los pastelicos comer con almendrigas y la miel.
Una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah linda está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Hanukkah linda está aquí, ocho candelas para mí. Oh, una candelica, dos candelicas, tres candelicas, cuatro candelicas, cinco candelicas, seis candelicas, siete candelicas, ocho candelas para mí.
I wish we could dance. I wish we could dance. This is one of those moments. I love that song, and every time we get into the sanctuary together, I have the musicians singing twice because it's such a fun song, and I wish we could be together and dance. But we'll do that next year. We'll do that next year. It's time for us to light our Shabbat candles. We light our Shabbat candles after we light our Hanukkah candles because once we light the Shabbat candles, it's Shabbat. And once it's Shabbat, we cannot light anything else. So that's why we always do it in this order. So I hope you have set up your Shabbat candles. And while you maybe have the need for that to happen, we're going to have Mike lead us into a nigun. So Mike, you can unmute yourself. And here you are.
Yada da, yada da 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 da, yada da, yada da da da, yada da, yada da da da, yada da, yada da da da, yada da. Yada da da da, yada da, 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 yada da, yada da 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 da, yada da. Yada da, yada da 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 da, yada da, yada da, yada da 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 da, yada da, yada da da da, yada da, yada da da da, yada da, yada da da da. Yada da, yada da 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 da, yada da, yada 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 da da da. Yada da, yada da da da.
You gotta love Zoom. You just have to love Zoom. All kinds of things can happen on Zoom. I was just looking at the song, the Ma'oz Tzur, and seeing Nathaniel. I mean, it was such a contrast with the video before when we saw him as a little kid participating in all the Hanukkah things and lighting his own little candles and then to see him sing. That was kind of quite a shock. You have to love Zoom. I love Zoom. All kinds of things can happen. I hope you had the time to light your candles. If you have the handout of your Shabbat booklet, if you need the words for the candles, that's where you're going to find them on page 1. Tonight, on this night of Shabbat Chanukah, some members have emailed us to share with us and with the community what it is they are lighting candles for. Greg Sigler and Barbara Gorham are lighting their candles tonight for Greg's uncle, Irvin Faludi, who made his transition early this morning. Irvin was a Holocaust survivor who had survived the Nazi occupation and also the Soviet siege of Budapest. And he did that together with Greg's mother and grandmother in the basement of a house in the center of the city that has been named the Yellow Star House, actually. Irvin is survived by his daughter, Judith, and his wife, Marianne. Hannah and Gerardo are lighting candles tonight in loving memory of Hannah's mother, Tomoe Yamazaki Nerbovig, on this 10th yard site, and for her father, Warren Nerbovig, on his passing 22 years ago. Their memories continue to burn bright in their hearts. And Diana Rose is also lighting her candles tonight in celebration of her being hired as a mental health counselor and music therapist at Seattle Wellness Center in Madison Park. This is a new group practice that will only open starting mid-January, so don't rush there tomorrow. And with plans by LiveStream to add naturopath, yoga, massage, acupuncture, and other modality. She says, working in a clinic that integrates Western and Eastern philosophies is a dream job for her. And we're so thrilled that her dream came around and she could just jump in and join. The question, as always, is what is it you are grateful for, lighting for, commemorating, honoring on this Shabbat? And as you find that for yourself, I invite you to cover your eyes, if you know the words, and to remind ourselves that the light which we are connecting to is, though kindled on the outside, is mirrored within our heart. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. Amen. So I wanted to spend also a little bit of time tonight. I kind of break it down in different parts. First, we do the history. Then we talk about the holiday of Hanukkah. And then the third part is how do we go a little deeper? How do we go beneath the surface to find the deeper meaning of the holiday? The holiday of Hanukkah is really very, very ancient in the sense that before it became Hanukkah, it was before Judaism was born, before monotheism was born, was a pagan holiday, a festival of light. And for the longest time, it was the festival of light for us. In fact, until rabbinic time, until the time of the Talmud, the really the first century of the Common Era, it was known as a festival of light. Only in the time post Maccabees did it become known as Hanukkah, but it was not at all connected with the holiday as we have it today. We know that for the 1,000 years that the people of Israel, the Hebrews, lived in the land of Israel, there was a winter holiday that was a festival of light. It was probably borrowed from our pagan neighbors, and it was probably something that we grew up with, that we always knew. It's that time of the year where it's so dark, right? The days are very short and the nights are very cold. And it makes sense in the psyche of humanity that you would create a festival where you would light big big fires everywhere, right? To kind of bring light into the darkness of the season and the darkness of the time. And so we know that from the most ancient of times, around this month of December, just before the solstice, the winter solstice, they were, as the day were the darkest and the shortest, they were festivals of light. The Jewish people had as part of their calendar a mix of lunar and solar. So if you look at when in the Jewish calendar the holiday of Hanukkah, those 8 days of celebration fall, they fall exactly not only at the time where the days are the shortest, right? But also when the moon disappears, slowly disappears, and so the nights are also the darkest. So Hanukkah is the convergence of both the lunar and the solar calendar in that most dark of all times. The candles of Hanukkah, as we kindle them, usher out the moon, and then the seventh, but mostly the eighth candle is the beginning, the thinnest sliver of the new moon that begins really with the seventh and the eighth candle, when the nights are going to grow brighter again with the moon becoming more and more full, but also moving into the winter solstice where the days are also going to get longer and longer and longer. So really, at the week of Hanukkah, when we light our candles, it is the darkest day-wise and night-wise of the entire year. And it makes sense to have a festival of light. We think, that the reason the Greek Empire and Antiochus decided right on what we know now as the 25th of Kislev in the Jewish month to take the temple and to have a big celebration to Zeus, obviously, was purposeful in the sense that this was a pagan holiday. The Festival of Light was a pagan holiday. There is no mistake that that time was chosen to, in fact, have a major Greek festivities, right? And so, though the Maccabees decided on the anniversary of the desecration of the temple to have the Chanukah of the temple, the rededication of the temple, it just makes sense that all of that coincide historically as well. So that really was what the holiday was about. It was a festival of light, and it's called the Festival of Light up until really the last century of BCE, after the rededication of the temple in 160 BCE. And it's called Chanukah, but it's called Chanukah because Chanukah means dedication or rededication. It's not called Chanukah the way we understand it. It will wait for the rabbis of the Talmud, of the Mishnah, so in the beginning of the Common Era, to reshape the holiday of Chanukah into what we know today. So in the first century of the Common Era, there is a very short question in the Mishnah, which is part 1 of the Talmud, that says, Mahi Chanukah? What's Chanukah? And it's not really about, I don't know what Chanukah is. It's about the rabbis asking themselves, what are we going to do with that holiday? And they're asking themselves, what are we going to do with that holiday? First of all, because everybody's celebrating it. And if they're going to help the Jews transition away from temple worship, as the temple is about to be destroyed, into a religion that is portable, they're going to have to figure out how Jews could still, because the Jews, we were still having a festival of light. We've been doing it for thousands of years. We were not going to stop. So the rabbis had to deal with, we can't make them stop, even though the rabbis really wanted them to stop, because Hanukkah, the dedication of the temple, was the celebration, as I said in the first part, of the military victory of the Maccabees, the Hashmonean family, which was the Maccabees, who took back the temple. But the Hashmonean family, the Maccabees, did something that the rabbis didn't like. They took back the temple, they installed themselves as the high priests in the temple, but they also took over the kingship. Up until that time, there was a separation, if you want, of church and state within our nation. And the kings were of a certain family and a certain lineage, and the priests were of a different lineage. The Hashmonean, the Maccabees, came into power, and they took both. Not only that, which was a great sin as far as the rabbis were concerned, not only that, but though they were the heroes of defeating one invader, as the Greek Empire was, they were the betrayer, they were the traitors when it came to the conquest of Rome. They, in fact, feared the Roman armies as they were coming in, but they invited them in. There was a lot of unrest within Judea, and they invited the Roman armies to help them quell the revolts that were against them. And so they really sold out the Jewish people to the Romans. The Romans were going to conquer anyway, but they didn't expect to be invited in. It's like, wow, that's really nice. Let's do that. And so they took over the land. They kept the Hashmonean family in power as kind of the deal they had. And so the rabbis, as they are seeing the Roman Empire now murdering Jews every day. I mean, by the time we're done with the burning of the Second Temple and the diaspora, the Romans are going to murder 3/4 of the Jewish people. And they are absolutely devastating our nation. And the rabbis are witnessing that. There are several revolts against them as well, that all of them are crushed. And so the rabbis are looking at the Hashmonean and are thinking, what did you do? Why did you do that to us? And so they did not want to celebrate the Maccabees. They were very ambivalent with the Maccabees. They were very ambivalent with Hanukkah, the way it was celebrated, because up until that point, it was really the celebration of the Maccabees' victory and the rededication of the temple. And so they ask in the Talmud, Mahi Hanukkah, not what is Hanukkah, but what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with Hanukkah? We can't stop it because clearly the people want to have a festival of light. But we're going to have to find a way not to connect it to the Maccabees anymore. In fact, the book of Maccabees are not part of the Jewish canon. They really kind of excommunicated the Maccabees and the Hashmonean from the Jewish canon. These books are apocrypha. They are not part of it. Because they hated the Maccabees. They hated the Hashmonean. They were not going to include them. It is only at the time of the Gemara, which is part 2, if you want, of the Talmud. The Mishnah is part 1. The Gemara is part 2. You know the difference because the Mishnah is written in Hebrew and the Gemara in Aramaic. That is when the conversation happens, 3 pages long of conversations between the rabbis in Babylon mostly, about the candles and the lights of Hanukkah. How long they should be, there is like conversation galore. And that's also when they discuss and invent. I'm sorry, it's like telling you Santa Claus doesn't exist. They invent the miracle of Hanukkah because they have to make the holiday about something else. And they invent the miracle of the oil. That oil that supposedly was found in the basement of the temple, brought up when the temple was rededicated to Jewish worship, to kindle for one day. There was enough oil for one day to kindle the great menorah, the 7-branched menorah of the holy temple of Jerusalem. And miracles of miracles, the oil not just lasted the one day you had just enough to last, but it lasted all the 8 days of the celebration. And that was now what the rabbis could focus on in order to help the Jews of the world, the survivors of the Romans, now continue to celebrate this holiday they loved so much, but reframed, recreated. And so what has happened since then, Hanukkah was always actually a very minor holiday. And the rabbis wanted it to be a minor holiday because if you make it a major holiday, then you're probably going to have to have a day of fast. You're going to have to change the prayer book for that. You're going to have the Hallel, which is a prayer of praise. So they kept it very low key. And Hanukkah really always was a very minor holiday until really Jews started to go back to Israel. When the Jews in the 1800s started to go back to Israel with the aim one day to recreate a Jewish state there, they needed, if you want, they needed storytelling. They needed storytelling to reshape the consciousness of what they called the new Jews, who are going to be landowners, who are going to be farmers, who are going to defend themselves. Right? They needed a new myth, and they looked in the story of the Maccabees as people who fought an enemy in the name of religious freedom, in the name of freedom, in the name of independence. They look at that story as their story. And so they brought they brought Hanukkah, if you want, back into the front. And it's really for the last 140, 150 years that we have started to really celebrate Hanukkah. And Hanukkah has shifted from a very minor holiday to one of the three big holidays of the year: Passover, High Holidays, and Hanukkah. And with the creation of the State of Israel, that became even more so. And because of that, it started to spread some 70, 80 years ago to the rest of the Jewish world. And it became very convenient with the commercialization of Christmas for the Jews to also have a way to answer their crying children, why don't I get presents for Hanukkah, when all my friends at school are getting presents for Christmas? And so it became also a time of gift giving as we now celebrate this holiday. I can go on, but I think this is a good summary of how we get the holiday of Hanukkah as it is celebrated today. When you go to Israel, some of you were there. I was looking at some pictures of our last trip. It is traditional to put your Hanukkah and your Chanukiah in the window to, I don't know, display the lights to your neighbors. In Israel, actually, in some religious neighborhoods, they have the Chanukiah. The Chanukiah is outdoors. It's actually even outside of your home, like on the street. It's in little glass containers, so you can, if it rains or if it's cold, it's still December in Israel. The candles are protected, and so you can walk through the streets of religious neighborhoods, and every home will have on their front porch all the candles of Hanukkah lit, and it's just a gorgeous sight to walk through. And people do that. People take the evening, early evening, and walk through the streets in Jerusalem and other parts to just watch the lights of Hanukkah. We have a song that goes with the story of Hanukkah. It's called Mi Yemalel, and I don't think it's in our. Oh yes, it is on page 2, at the bottom of page 2, and Celia is going to lead us into the song tonight.
Mi yemalel burot Yisrael otan bimne, hen bechol dor yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Shema, bayamim ha'em b'zman haseh, Maccabim Moshiach ufoteh, uvyamenu kol am Yisrael, yitacher yakum lahigael. Mi yemalel kurot Yisrael otan bimne, en bechol yakum hagibor goel ha'am. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid.
It's so great to be able to do all the songs of Hanukkah. It's really wonderful. We are in your Shabbat prayer book, we are on page 5, and we are going to share in the Bachu, following by the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. So though we're going to remain muted, join me for the Baruchu. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Bless the Eternal, the one who is blessing. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the Eternal, the one who is blessing eternally.
Yada da 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 yada. Yada da 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 da. Yada da 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 da. Yada da yada da. Yada da 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 da.
And on page 6, we share the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, the eternal manifest as all that is. The eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Blessed is the name, the splendor of its presence shines eternally.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael
And at the bottom of the page, we share in the words of the Ve'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך, ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת. So, I'd like to invite you to go beyond the historical, beyond the contours of the holiday itself, into perhaps finding this year a deeper meaning. And every year I look for what else is this holiday inviting us into? And I was present this year in asking myself, what if Hanukkah was an invitation not to celebrate an ancient miracle, but instead to open our eyes here and now to the miracle of this moment? I read an article from the University of Oxford. They published a study. And I read that article last week that proved statistically that in all probability there isn't another Earth-like planet anywhere in the universe that supports the kind of intelligent life that we are and are surrounded with. That the millions upon millions of minute, infinitesimal evolutionary events that needed to take place, all at the right exact time and in the right exact order, since the formation of Earth some 4.5 billion years ago, exactly at the distance of the sun it took its orbit, makes it statistically near impossible to duplicate. They pointed to the fact that it took a single cell organism more than 1 billion years to advance and become organisms with a nucleus. And this single evolutionary step alone required more than 1 billion years of undisturbed environment in order to take place, making it so highly unlikely that for it to happen statistically ever again would be overwhelmingly, exceptionally rare, if not quasi impossible. We, you and me, we might be the only intelligent species existing alone in the entire universe. And our existence itself, statistically, is also an impossible miracle. Your existence, statistically, is an impossible miracle. You are a miracle. You are the oil that wasn't even supposed to be kindled into light. And yet you are the last evolutionary expression of a unique branch of life that started some 300,000 years ago. So what would it look like? What would it look like if we reclaimed this life moment we are sharing right now, as absolutely sacred? This breath you are breathing as absolutely sacred. This beating of your heart as absolutely sacred. This unique, precious life of ours as absolutely sacred. What if these holidays we could bring back to the surface the hidden infinite light of spirit that we are? We are this miracle of oil. We are this miracle candle that holds the light of being. But we identify ourselves with the candle, not seeing that the candle is just a container for the light that it shines. The light cannot be other than separate from the candle. The candle and the light are not two. They are one. In fact, the only purpose of the candle is to reveal the light, it is meant to kindle in the world. You, I, we are that miracle. So on this second night of Hanukkah, of rededication, may we dedicate our temple, our candle self, if you want, this body container of ours, to shining the light of being that is our light, to shining the light of being that is our light ever more brightly into a world of darkness and forgetfulness. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Amen. We are on page 3, but this time in your handout. On page 3, you will find at the top of the page a song by Debbie Friedman called Not by Might, Not by Power.
Not by might and not by on my path. Shalom.
Amen. I'd like to invite us all into just a moment of meditation, just a few minutes. Just for us to breathe and to relax. I want us to feel into our candle self first. To feel into the physicality of it. Feel into the sensations of the physical body. But our candle self is not just the physical body and the sensations that we experience. It is also our emotional body. So whatever the sensations you are present to right now, whatever the emotions you may be present to right now, just hold them in awareness. There's no need to change anything, just to be present to whatever is there for you. Now our candle self, this container, is not just the physical sensations, the emotional body, it is also mind. The mind and the thoughts that arise on their own, stay for a while, and then pass away. Arise, stay, disappear. And they're part of this container. And just honor the reality of the container, of the candle self. It is unique. There never was another one like it before, and never will be another one like it after the candle's burned. But look at the candle. The candle is only here to reveal the light within. The candle and the light are one. What would be the point of a candle if he wasn't to carry the light? What would be the point of the candle of ours, this body-mind, if it wasn't to be a conduit for that light of being, that divine, I was going to say spark, but it's more than a spark, it's the totality of ourself. We are a fire. We are the light of being, kindled through the candle of ourself. But we identify ourselves with the container. With the outer shell manifestation of the light. And we forget. We forget the light. We're so busy being candles We ignore, in fact, most of the time, the light that seeks to be kindled, seems to be shared, seeks to be brought forth. Our spiritual practice asks us to reverse our perspective. That we are not a candle that from time to time remembers its little light. When things are good or when we are in a good predisposition. Our spiritual practice asks us to remember that we are the light. And that the candle is born out of the light. That we might see life from the perspective of the light through the eyes of the divine presence, not through the eyes of the false separate sense of self, of the ego. There's a teacher, his name is Muji, who I quote from time to time, which is relevant to the gift-giving holiday of Hanukkah. He says, "You are a present from God. Do not identify yourself with a wrapping paper. And this is perhaps the challenge of Hanukkah this year. That we might find our light again. Our light of wholeness. Light of healing. And may that light of healing shine brightly on all the souls of those we know in need of healing on this Shabbat. Those you hold in your heart, those you have inscribed on our healing list. Craig Wilson, Daniel Clark, Hillary Wilson, Phyllis and Mike Levin, Farhan Hassan, Yitzhak Leib ben Bertha ve'Aharon, Dave Malkoff, Maxwell Bernard, Susanna Davis, David Mark, Rebecca Risman, Richard Aaron Ben Chaim, Martin Yani, Shelly Cohen, Chris Mochel Werner, Marissa LeCabe, Pauline Morris, Mark Montefusco, Matt Fenkhauser, Katie Cordes, David Shalloway, Lee Shalloway, Megan El Sayed, Jalal Jalain, Willow 8, Peter Metzger, Kevin Lipman, Simon Garcia, Jerry Petitz, Lois Gordon, Celia Curran, Tyler Brown, Mark Hopi, Dahlia Wellens, Cynthia Curran, Ed Diaz, Kyle Gregg, Dov Lehavi, Dorinda Regan, Kingsley Fairchild, Stanley Suffren, Wanda Zman Suffren, Cheryl Balch, Mark Anderson, Jerry Sanderson, Noah Etzioni, Pam Heller, Hai Cohen, Jan Lisa Laurie, Stuart Williams, Jason Hahn, Lee Viter, Jean Matson, John Gorham, Gloria Funston. There are too many names on our healing list. And yet we share with them a healing song.
הושיע את עמך, וברך את נחלתך, ורעים ונשיאים עד העולם. מי שברך אבותינו, מי שברך אמותינו, אנא אדוני הושיענה. We pray for healing of our people. We pray for healing of the land and peace for every race and nation, every child, every woman, every man. El Narifana. Oh, please heal us now. Please heal us now. El Narifana. Oh, please heal us now. Please heal us Heal us now. Heal us now. Heal us
No! It was going to start all over again. We are on page 13 of your prayer book and about to share in the Memorial Kaddish. And we take a moment before we share in those ancient words written in Aramaic, words that are at minimum 2,000 years old. We share in the names of those on our memorial lists, those you remember on this Shabbat, those who have made their transition in recent weeks. Gary Marmer, a brother of Atit Marmer, Sumvang Sis Amuth, friend of Stu Heller, Sari Lou Codden, friend of Ellen Lyons, Marco Antonio Florian Corona, friend of Ellen and Michael Lyons, Klaus Schuler, Diana and Nathaniel's friend, Bill Harris, Celia Kern's uncle, Lorne Lee, Diana Rose's friend, Michael Ruff, Susan Austin's friend, Irvin Faludi, Greg Sigler's uncle. We hold in light of memory those who have made their transition in this past year. Teddy Freeman, Virginia Calvo, Marsha Jaffe, Lawton Waples, Millard Petersky, Deborah Batts, Marion Marika Gordon, Stella Altwies, Mary Rose, Dan Klein, Eleanor Gerber, Charlotte Klein, Alberta Hitzroth, Avraham Ben Moshe Veshendel, Marlene Klein, Mary Squeeze, Tim Schott, Janine Gilbert, Imogen Williams, Eldon Olson, Don Worms, Emily Swartz, Dr. Carol Stanley, Robert White, David Heitmiller, Dr. Agnes Schuler, Dr. Dejo Schuler, Jerry Crouch, Jonathan Sachs, Fern Danker O'Connor. On this Shabbat, we also hold in light of memory those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their transition, happens at this time of the year. Alain Aridge, Dee Rosenthal, Dr. Harry S. Mandelson, Gladys Letton, Hai Krupkin, Mel Simon, Judith Bernstein, Gary Atkinson, Tomoe Yamazaki Nerbovig, and Warren Nerbovig. And we hold in our hearts the memories of those we are connected to on this Chanukah, on this Shabbat, and we share in the mourner's Kaddish. Itgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba, be'ela divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו. לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us, for all the household of Israel, and for all the peoples of the world. And let us say, Amen. We're going to do Kiddush, we're going to do Motzi, and then we have two amazing songs still to come to close this celebration together. Don't go anywhere. It would be really sad, really sad. You would really be sad. Find your Kiddush cup, find your bottle of wine or juice, whatever works for you. It has to be grape, whatever fruit of the vine. Grape is, anything else is great. Fill it up. And I'm going to ask that we unmute ourselves so we can say the Kiddush together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei kli hagafot. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzavanu Shabbat kodsho ve'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron למעשה בראשית הוא יום תפילה למקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה ובשמחת אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
Now I hope you have a challah.
No.
If not, just bring your hand close to my challah That'll be as if you had touched the challah that we are going to bless.
Aw.
Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam,
haolam,
hamotzi
hamotzi
lechem
lechem
haaretz.
haaretz.
Hey, Ava.
Delicious, Rabbi.
All right, I'm going to mute everybody again. We have two concluding songs that are my favorite songs of Hanukkah. So hang in there. I'm going to start the first one right now and get ready to dance wherever you are because I am.
Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, I'll give you a treat. Sivivon to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago.
Chanukah, oy Chanukah, ayom tefashena, alustecha freilich anitona chazena, alle Nachten freilich spielen wir, Zude Kesselat, essen wir, geschwindet sind Kinder, die Chanukah lechon, soll jeder wunderbar singen, dem Wundern tanzen, fröhlichen Chor. Soll jeder wunderbar singen, dem Wundern tanzen, fröhlichen Chor. Oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, I'll give you a treat. Sivivon to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago.
That was so nice. Nice to see Jal there playing. And it's so cool. All right. So the last song, amazing song. We actually sang it for the first time. Diana, let me know. Last year was the first time we ever sang it. This year, we have, well, Diana and the singers have, I'm just watching, have created another one of those videos, but you're going to have to watch very carefully. And I love it. So, you know, when I love a song, I have a tendency to play it twice. So we'll see what happens. So, but first, I have to set it up. So give me just 1 second. Okay. We are ready to go to Santa Monica for Hanukkah.
I'm spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica, wearing sandals, lighting candles by the sea.
I spent Shavuos in East St. Louis, a charming spot, but clearly not the spot for me.
Those eastern winters, I can't endure 'em, so every year I pack my gear and come out here for Purim.
Shana, I spend in Arizona, and Yom Kippur way down in Mississippi. But in December, there's just one place for me.
Amid the California flora,
I'll be lighting my menorah.
Like a baby in his cradle.
I'll be playing with my dreidel.
spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica by the sea.
charming spot, but clearly not the spot for me.
Those eastern winters, I can't endure 'em. So every year I pack my gear and come out here to Purim.
Rosh Hashanah I spend in Arizona, and Yom Kippur way down in Mississippi. But in December there's just one place for me.
Amid the California flora.
I'll be lighting my
Like a
menorah.
baby in its cradle.
I'll be playing with my dreidels. Here's to
Judas
Judas Maccabeus.
Boy, if they could only see us
Spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica by the
sea.
Show of hands. We need it a second time. I see a lot of hands. I see a lot of hands. I see Mike is in his costume. I see all the musicians are in their costume. I think that's pretty fabulous. I think that's pretty amazing. I think we're doing it again. I think that was great. I think that was great. Let's do it again because there's so much in there. You have to really pay attention to everything. So check it out. There we go.
I'm spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica, wearing sandals, lighting candles by the sea.
I spent Shavuos in East St. Louis, a charming spot, but clearly not the spot for me.
Those eastern winters, I can't endure 'em. So every year I pack my gear and come out here for Purim.
Shana I spend in Arizona, and Yom Kippur way down in Mississippi. But in December, there's just one place for me.
Amid the California
I'll
flora.
be lighting my menorah.
Like a baby in his cradle.
I'll be playing with my dreidels.
Spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica by the sea.
I'm spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica, wearing sandals, lighting candles by the sea.
I spent Shavuos in East St. Louis, a charming spot, but clearly not the spot for me.
Those eastern winters, I can't endure 'em. So every year I pack my gear and come out here to Purim.
Rosh Hashanah I spend in Arizona, and Yom Kippur way down in Mississippi. But in December there's just one place for me.
Amid the California flora.
I'll be lighting my
Like a
menorah.
baby in its cradle.
I'll be playing with my dreidels. Here's to
Judas
Judas Maccabeus.
Boy, if they could only see us
Spending Hanukkah in Santa Monica by the sea.
Oh, I love it. I just love it. It's so much fun. Well, that's it. That's our celebration. I'm glad you guys were here. Thank you all for being here and not in Santa Monica. Or maybe you are. I mean, there, who knows?
Wouldn't matter. Next year in Santa Monica.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah. Travel
Happy
safe,
Hanukkah.
Rabbi.
Travel safe, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, have a safe trip. Yeah, travel safe. Happy Hanukkah.
Voyage.
Merci tova.
Wow, in French and in Hebrew, in English, that's really cool.
Killed the tooth fairy on the candlelight, the miracle of Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Lol, new.
Okay.
Mike's
Scared. Mared.
Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach.
So good to see
Safe travels.
you.
I love these live things.